Welcome back to That Is Effin' Weird, and today's episode we are going to be talking about presidential conspiracy theories.
Ooh.
It's President's Day today, Monday. Hopefully we can get this out maybe in a day or two or by the end of the week, just something for you to look at or listen to about the past or the present, President's Day. So I'm not alone. Stephen Longbottom here with
Lily. Hi, everyone.
And Clark, aka the Reverend Michael Snakebite, live from the road.
yeah. Clark is tuning in his car, so that's why it sounds a little bit different. But we're all happy to be here, and let's get right into it. So this first one is about Thomas Jefferson and the Illuminati. So, and all this information, if you want to look it up by yourself, listener, it's from listverse.com. It's 10 mind-boggling presidential conspiracy theories. We're just going to go down the list and read them to you. But according to a conspiracy theorist, even back in the 1800s, the Illuminati were hard at work trying to control important members of the public. Now, before I read any further, Clark and Lily, do you guys believe in the Illuminati, or do you think it's real?
Yes, I do believe.
Ooh, I don't.
Really?
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, Lily, please explain why, and then Clark, let's hear why you don't believe in it.
Okay.
So I believe that there's definitely some sort of group of people that are powerful and just have a lot of connections that are trying to get their little fingers in just important affairs. Now, I don't know if it's the Illuminati, if they have a different name. I don't know where they're based. But yeah, I totally subscribe to that. There's a group of people somewhere that have just that much power. I totally believe it.
So actually, she said it. I believe the exact same thing. I just think it's funny that she came to the conclusion of yes, and I came to the conclusion of no. Because I think the same thing, but I don't believe it's necessarily called the Illuminati. I think there are definitely shadow groups though that are pulling strings,
Yes.
and I definitely think that world leaders are more chummy and in each other's back pockets than we like to admit, just for the sake of keeping public tribalized and opposed to each other, so that they I guess that they can continue doing their shady dealings and making themselves richer and powerful and keeping us divided and from being in on that information.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the consensus, that there is something out there higher than the government really pulling the strings as far as like who's in power, what's going to happen. Like there is like an agenda. I do remember a while back we did cover an episode called the Illuminati. So you listener, if you want to know more about it, go ahead and take a listen to that. But I do remember something that I found was that there was a Illuminati what is it, like a membership website where you could sign up to be a part of the Illuminati. Yes, it was insane. It was like, okay, I think if the Illuminati like is real, I don't think they're just gonna have like a membership sign up website
I don't know
or
about
anything.
that.
Yeah, I think it definitely has to be just somebody created it and then is probably getting $20 or $30 per person to sign up to the Illuminati. I don't know. Let's see here. In this case, it was the Illuminati that was pulling the strings to get Thomas Jefferson elected in the first place. So during the time of Thomas Jefferson's election, the Federalists, who were part of Thomas Jefferson's opposition, claimed that Thomas Jefferson was not only connected to the Illuminati, but was the American head of the Illuminati. And by electing him, he would help to create a government takeover, which would get rid of people's ability to own private property and destroy Christianity. Interesting. I've never heard of this conspiracy.
Yeah.
So I guess they're saying that Thomas Jefferson was the head of the Illuminati, and they were trying to. So I mean, he was a president, so he did make that happen. But I guess in the sense it's not true, because we still have people that own property today. if that was like the goal behind it. I don't know.
I think there's some facts here that are being twisted to make a story. If you think about it, the original voting class and the original founding fathers were all land holding, like, that was kind of the basis of voting, was land ownership. So that was originally how it was all set up. So, the wealthy plantation owners or business owners, things like that, those are the people that had a voice, that had a say. So I think maybe someone's taking, land ownership basically determined your value as a human being back in this time. Sounds like that's how you acquire power. If you can keep people from owning land or whatever then you own all the power, which technically is still true to this day if you think about it. I mean,
look at Bill Gates. I mean, he owns more farmland, I think, than any one person in the United States right now. Like,
right.
that is insane.
So I think that's one. And then two, have either of you ever seen the Jefferson Bible?
Oh, I think I've heard of it, but for our listeners, go ahead and explain.
So, yeah, Thomas Jefferson famously had a copy of the Bible, and you can actually see this at Monticello in Virginia if you go visit his home. So I've been lucky enough to actually see this. But the Jefferson Bible is basically, he took a Bible and cut out all of the parts that involved miracles or like faith and things like that. So basically it becomes a book of good works and morals.
Interesting.
So that was what they call the Jefferson Bible, because that's what he basically did. If you take the religion part out of it, it becomes a book of how to be a good person, basically.
I was going to say, like, that's mostly what the Bible is like. Was it pretty small then? Was it a thin book?
No, because there's a lot of genealogy and a lot of history and a lot of things like that in the Bible that still have, I guess, merit and worth if you're interested in that. Like, even I took a military history class called The Bible as a Military History Document. And it basically did the same thing, where you take all the miracles out and you study the actual, you study the battles and things like that are in the Bible, and like the books of Kings and Samuel and Chronicles and even Joshua, but you take the miracles out and then you look at corresponding documents that we have from like their enemies and what they said about.
I think we lost Clark. You're gonna have to say that last little bit over, Clark. We're cutting in and out.
Oh no.
Oh, we lost Clark altogether.
They got him.
The
Illuminati picked him up. Clark, are you there?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
Right. The last thing I said was basically taking those books like Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles, and then Joshua and things like that, and even Job. Or not Job, but the Judges, because the Judges technically were military leaders at the time, and so you take all those books and then you see what their actual like the corresponding documents, like what their enemies were saying about them at the same time. Because there were other people obviously keeping their written history and records. The Bible just happens to be not only a book of morals and faith, but also records history of the Israelites and things like that. So like when you look at all that, you can actually get a pretty compelling like story of ancient battles and how they were actually being fought. So yeah, you can technically take, like Jefferson did, you can take the faith and the miracles out of the Bible, and it becomes a rather substantial book on just morality.
Interesting. Yeah. I guess I knew of that, like the Jefferson Bible, but I guess I didn't really like look into it all that much to understand. So thanks for shedding some light on that, Clark.
Yeah. I'm really surprised that a religion wasn't born out of it.
Yeah. Or some sort of like belief system or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that would be kind of ironic, because that's the whole purpose of it, is Jefferson saying,
right?
Look, you can be a good person without having a faith-based compass.
That is you know what that reminds me of? I just saw a video on this. The singer that made this has nothing to do with presidential or anything like that, but the ironic part of it is that I don't know her name, but the girl that sang the song Dance Monkey Dance, you know what I'm talking about?
What's her name?
Yes.
Tones and I.
She made that song, and then that was the only song people wanted to hear. And she made it because I forgot the reason why, but it's ironic because everyone would just chant for her to sing that song. So the ironic part of it was like,
Yeah.
you're
Oh
just,
my God.
yeah,
Right.
you're just playing into exactly what I'm singing about.
Yeah.
You're not listening to the lyrics. So
Yeah, that I actually know the story behind that. That song she wrote when she was just a busker, like in Australia,
Oh,
and that's so the song itself is a representation of people just throwing money in her like her little keyboard case and her playing for people on the street. And so Dance Monkey, like they just keep being like, yeah, here,
right.
they're just
Yeah, it's almost
throwing
come full
change. Yeah,
circle.
so it's yeah, it's the life of a busker where you're playing on the street for change, and people are requesting songs and yelling out songs for you, and then she writes a whole song about that, and it ends up being basically, yeah, that's the song that people are screaming out for her to play constantly because it's her only hit.
Goodness.
yeah. All right, we'll get on to the next presidential conspiracy theory. So it's about Millard Fillmore, better known as the 13th president of the United States, was also a member of the party Know Nothing Party. While it is not uncommon for presidents to also have been a part of a secret society, President Fillmore associated that was a cause for slight concern due to their beliefs that that Catholic immigrants were coming to the United States, were attempting to take over the government.
Ooh.
So Fillmore and the Know Nothing Party consisted of Protestants who believed that Catholics, by extension, the Pope, directly opposed American values and what the government stood for. The party believed that immigrants should go through a 21-year naturalization process to prove
Good grief.
to prove their patriotism, and that Catholics especially should be removed from public office. That is crazy.
Right? Goodness.
So I guess yeah, I don't think I fully agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean
that might be a little extreme. Maybe.
Yeah, like 20, like, oh, I mean, I think by itself, just labeling a group that like everyone that is associated with it believes the same thing. I don't know. I just can't jump on board with that. And then also the fact that 21 years to prove yourself in like the American values, I think that's a long time.
Yeah, that
I
is
don't know.
intense. Agreed. Yeah. And that would only be the start of the process, right? That's just eligibility. You still have to go through the entire thing after that. Yeah, no, that's too much.
Yeah, I don't know. It goes on to say that there was no concrete proof that Catholic immigrants were coming to the U.S. in order to overthrow the government and destroy Americans' worth ethic. However, their views towards immigrants remained popular even through the party eventually dissipating. So I wonder what the Know Nothing Party.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of this party. No.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't either.
Yeah, there was a lot of still weird parties like early on. I mean, really before anything before Lincoln, you really see, and even up through Lincoln, because I think you had still people wanting to run under the Whig Party and things like that, which was kind of the biggest third party for a long time early in U.S. history, and that's kind of a holdover from like English Parliament. So they like, I think it had a lot of the same morals and stuff like that. I can't remember because, like I said, it's so far removed from our time now that we don't think of like a major third party. I mean, I guess libertarian is what we have for today, like today's reference. But there used to be a lot of like major third parties that would kind of pop up and die out over the years.
Right.
As far as the immigration and things like that, this is still a time where, I don't know, identity is kind of a thing. Like, because you think about it, America was really kind of founded. You have the Protestants coming over as like an original reason, to settle other than like financial gain, because those are, initial colonies, were half financial and half asylum for like Protestantism when you still had a lot of like Catholic nations. And then you also have really up through, I mean, you see that still up through like the Civil War, like I said, up through Lincoln and all, you see a lot of like Irish kind of hatred because of Irish Catholics coming over and things like that. And, and maybe that's why a lot of our early settlers were also like German, because German Protestantism was kind of bigger than, that's one of the first countries that was bigger than Catholicism. You still had a huge Catholic presence in England, Ireland, obviously, and then like France, Spain. So you don't see a lot of those kind of Catholic influences initially in America. And then mainly because a lot of the early conflicts were against those countries. If you think about it, you had British America fighting against the French and Spanish and the Dutch, really, and then I guess then against England itself to get its independence. So you had a lot of anti-Catholic kind of sentiment and anti-Irish sentiment and things like that. But I do think that's funny because if he's the 13th president, wasn't the 14th Van Buren, whose first language was German? So theoretically, he was like the first president. Yeah. So he was the first president that wasn't English or American born.
Yes.
So
yeah. I also sometimes think, like, you bringing up the fact that like there was so many different parties, what it would be like today if most of those parties still existed in some sort of fashion. No, I get like, the values and everything changes, and like it does change, but to have more than just the Republicans and the Democrats, but to really have like, I don't know, 7 or 8 different parties, and to like see it would be so weird, I think, to like just have a total shift. But because I feel like 1 year it's good, or every 4 years, if this party wins, things might be more like this, or if this party wins, all right, things might be more like this. But to have like 8 different parties and be like, I have no idea how the next 4 years are gonna go. Like it could be this or that, just all these different. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't Germany have something like that where like they have a lot of political parties still like going? I could be wrong.
I'm not sure how theirs works. But going back to our own, I would kind of say we're so stuck on the labels of Democrat and Republican. I think that we do actually have third party values infiltrate and eventually morph those into the party. Like, I mean, we've actually seen in the 20th century alone, the Democratic and the Republican parties flip like completely.
Yeah.
And, as far as what their like kind of moral value stance and everything is, but it, like basically what it is now is we're too set on not giving up those titles. So we don't want to change the name of the party. We just rather change the values of the party and keep its name. And I think that's what we're stuck in, really. So I think when you have like a third party, like right now, libertarian, I think that is born out of the fact of, hey, we want this from the conservative side, we want this from the liberal side. And what you see is the reason that party doesn't get more traction than it does is because you already have those values in each side. You have conservatives that lean liberal on a lot of issues. You have liberals that lean conservative on a lot of issues. But they're going to stay with their party and work on that versus join a completely third party that might not have any kind of sway.
Yeah. I'm just kind of surprised that like, I don't mean to get like into a political debate or anything. And normally this podcast really doesn't talk politics at all, but I really am kind of surprised that just like I mean, everyone can feel it, just like the hatred towards the two different parties. I'm surprised that not more people are looking at like a third party or starting something new, because I feel like that's what it really is. It's like I feel like there really is no middle ground right now, or I mean, maybe people have changed, but I feel like just having like a discourse and a conversation, there's just so much hate. So I'm surprised that like not a third party has emerged from all of this. I don't know, or another party.
Right. You'd rather have the backing than start, from ground zero. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Instead of like building from the ground up, you'd rather have kind of the pool of being under a bigger house. Yeah. Makes sense. Going back to like the, secret societies that might be controlling, it wouldn't surprise me that if there was an effort to make a third, option, it wouldn't surprise me that it was shushed and pushed down, because is there any, money to be made there? Is it worth it to lobby for such a party? Maybe there's other optics that it doesn't make it very advantageous to have a third option that wouldn't be as polarizing.
I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Coming full circle right there. The Illuminati is behind it. Yeah, that's good. All right, we're going to get on to our next one. So this one's about the Vice President Andrew Johnson and the Lincoln assassination. So the loss of President Abraham Lincoln has led to a fair number of conspiracy theories through the years, but one of the most far-fetched conspiracy theory is that Andrew Johnson, who was vice president at the time, would go on and become the president, was actually the mastermind behind the assassination of the president. So the theory claims that while Lincoln was, in fact, by John Wilkes Booth, Booth was acting on specific orders from someone on the inside.
Ooh.
Vice President Johnson, this comes from the belief that John Wilkes Booth went also by allies John St. Helen and confessed to his wife, Vince Bates, that Andrew Johnson and him discussed the death of Lincoln. The theorists also claim that Johnson provided Booth with the means to escape afterwards, and that the inclusion of Johnson's name on the hit list was to ensure that he would not be suspected afterwards. Ooh.
Yep. They probably do run the media, so that's.
I guess. Well, I guess the reason it doesn't. I mean, that's the end of the little article there, but I guess why? Like, why? I mean, why would you pick a vice president that wasn't going to, be by your side? I don't know. That's a weird one.
Interesting.
Well,
huh?
I think if you look at Andrew Johnson's presidency, that conspiracy starts to chip away pretty quick, because Andrew Johnson was not Lincoln's original vice president. In his second term, he chose Johnson because Johnson was from North Carolina, and he thought having a Southern vice president would maybe endear post-war sentiments back towards the federal government, to be like, hey, look, we're reconciliation. We're trying to come back together and heal as a nation. And and under Lincoln, that probably would have gone a lot smoother, but Andrew Johnson was a very ineffectual president and kind of botched Reconstruction altogether, and the South ended up suffering greatly because of it, and it did not help. It did not help relations between the states.
I guess I didn't know that he was originally from the South, because I was thinking that just now. I was like, okay, did he support the South, or like did he have some sort of like connections? But you saying that, okay, that makes a little bit more sense, and I guess that's why maybe the conspiracy theory was born, or how it was originated.
And maybe that part of the conspiracy also is maybe. I mean, he obviously did not do the South any favors during Reconstruction. And if nothing else, he set us back as far as a lot of things, as far as, economically and race relations, and everything was botched terribly.
Right.
I guess then my question is how can this be like a legit conspiracy if that's the case, if he didn't really like care for the South and how it was going to end up, or like,
I can think it's because maybe they were thinking he like sabotaged Reconstruction to keep a resentment between the southern and northern states. Maybe that's the only reach I kind of go for. That's really the only way I can kind of think of it. But if you look at it just on the surface of, okay, he was originally from the South, and who stood to gain the most from Lincoln being offed? Okay, he becomes president.
That's true.
But then when you look at the fact that he was actually a terrible president and did not do anyone any favor, then the conspiracy kind of breaks away there, because it's like, well, he didn't really get anything out of it other than a terrible legacy.
It's so interesting too. I'm looking at the article and then just rereading it again, and it says that like Booth was acting on specific orders from someone on the inside. Now I'm wondering if John Wilkes Booth wasn't killed right then and there. Like, he was captured, correct? And like put in jail?
It took him another, I think, almost 2 weeks before they caught up to him.
Okay. So my guess is that like because I feel like when people are captured, or like at this point, what does he have to lose? He can say anything that he wants to. Like it might have been someone from on the quote unquote inside that made him do it or whatever. But all right, you're caught. You can say anything that you want to, and people will believe it. That's like, I guess that's why people say like torturing is not an effective tool to get someone to confess, because like they'll say anything for you to stop hurting them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's ineffective. So I'm not saying John Wilkes Booth was tortured or anything like that, but all I'm saying is that he could have been saying anything. I don't know.
Yeah, and then once you realize the depth of the plot too, like Lincoln wasn't the only target that night. Like Andrew Johnson was a target as well.
And that's what the article says, is that like his name was like on the piece of paper too, so it wouldn't look like he was the inside man.
As a red herring. Mm-hmm.
And see, like I'd heard conspiracies that William Seward also was the mastermind behind it, who was the Secretary of State. He was also assaulted that night. I'm trying to remember. One of them was stabbed pretty badly, and I can't remember if it was Seward or Johnson. I thought Johnson got off altogether. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. The guy that was supposed to kill Andrew Johnson just got drunk and walked away.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And I want to say Seward was stabbed pretty badly, and so that kind of takes away the people that think he was behind it. But yeah, that's like I said, seems kind of silly. I mean, you can write it off as, oh, well, the guy that was supposed to kill Johnson conveniently didn't. And so, I guess that adds to the conspiracy. But I mean, when you see the eyewitnesses like that reported the guy that was supposed to kill him was like at the bar drinking heavily and then just chickened out.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's one of these things where like in school we learn about, okay, yeah, President Lincoln was assassinated, or like touch too much into it. Like I've never really looked into the actual assassination of Abraham Lincoln or anything. So that's kind of interesting. I should probably do that.
Yeah, there's probably an episode to be made about that.
I bet you we could make an episode on that by itself.
Yeah, some interesting stuff that happened. So, like I said, and even the people that still maintain that it wasn't John Wilkes Booth that was killed that night in the barn, they think that he survived, and then there's a whole conspiracy around the guy that killed John Wilkes Booth. That guy, I mean, a lot of people don't know that he went and castrated himself.
Oh goodness!
Yeah, there's a lot of wacky stuff around the Lincoln assassination.
Maybe we might have to put that on the calendar, maybe for like next year or something like that, next presidential President's Day. This next one, Clark, you might know quite a bit about this one with your military history background. So the attack on Pearl Harbor is viewed as as the catalyst that catapulted the United States into World War II. The attack was devastating to the United States and was unexpected, unless you're a conspiracy theorist. Haha. A major conspiracy theory stands that the 26th president of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, not only knew of Japan's intent to attack Pearl Harbor, but let it happen in his desire to go to war against Germany. Oh. So I want to say they just recently made a movie about this.
I don't know one's centered necessarily around the conspiracy theory. I mean, I think they do a decent job in some of the most recent, like the movie Midway they remade. Obviously, the original movie was from the 60s, and they remade that recently in like 2021 or something like that. And it's actually I actually enjoy it. It looks visually, it's amazing. But in that movie, they actually go all the way back to Pearl Harbor and everything, and kind of really focus on the code breakers, and that being kind of a pivotal point of how the Battle of Midway shifted in our favor. But it kind of shows how they were working on stuff all the way before Pearl Harbor even. And as far as the conspiracy on that one, you could say the same thing about 9/11. I think we had all of the inclination and the information there. We were just, I think, maybe a little too arrogant and a little too proud to think that they could actually pull it off. And I think 9/11 is similar. I think people knew. I think people tried to warn and say, hey, this is worth looking into. This is realistic. And I think a lot of people that maybe got that information said, nah, like nobody's going to be able to pull off something like that.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like whatever information was given, like, let me read the rest of the article real quick. So theorists claim that not only was the United States government aware of it, but so was the British government, and they had plotted to push Japan into a position where they would ultimately attack the United States and turn public favor towards entering war. Conspiracy theorists believe that the intercept, the Japanese code, which was deciphered, stated that they would not only attack, but was also where they would attack. While there's no concrete proof to support this conspiracy theory, many believe it was because it was part of a cover-up as well.
And I have heard stuff like that, and there has been rumored documents. I have not looked enough into it to say whether these are proven or not, but there is a lot of like false flag stuff where Churchill apparently kind of wanted, like he was really leaning towards somebody to attack the U.S. so they had a reason to come into the war, and not just financially, but actually militarily. And so that's been whispered before, that it was like, oh, England knew about it, but they withheld that because they wanted the U.S. to join.
Right.
And then, like I said, I think it's pretty obvious that we had a lot of suspected information, and we just went about it wrong. Similar to 9/11 again. Like, I think they knew the Japanese their backs were against the wall, and they had to do something. I mean, we had pushed them into that corner, and it was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And I think, like pretty much all of the other countries, like the UK did as well, yeah, I think we just underestimated their capabilities of what they were going to be able to realistically pull off, as far as an assault. And, and that's not the only time during World War II that the Japanese were underestimated. The same thing with the UK did it the same way. They invaded Singapore. They called Singapore Fortress Singapore, that it was like they thought it was unable to be taken by anybody. And the Japanese literally did it with bicycles and their better knowledge of jungle warfare. I mean, they didn't think any military force would be able to navigate and like take that much land that quick, and they literally did it with bicycles.
Wow.
Because they're like, yeah, we can do this. I mean, they were just better suited for that kind of warfare.
It really is crazy when you think about just like tactics in war and everything, and the person like that is going into the environment that they're not aware of doesn't have the upper hand. Wherever you're going to, or whoever's like, I guess whoever has home field advantage. I mean, like there is that term, home field advantage, really does have the upper hand. They know the area, they know the environment. I can't remember what specific war this is. Clark, maybe you can help me out with this one, but it was between Russia and I think another country. I don't know, maybe not. I don't know. Long story short, one group was not ready for I think it was Germany. They just weren't ready for the cold. And there was another group that they were better suited for it, and they didn't have to do anything. Like the environment just killed off whoever was attacking. And I want to say it was Germany. I just can't.
Several times in Russia. It happened to the French during the Napoleonic.
I was gonna say, is it Waterloo that we're talking about?
Is that?
Yeah, the Grand Army from Napoleon's France actually marched into Russia with the same idea.
Maybe that's what it is.
Basically, Nazi Germany did in World War II, and basically the same thing happened. The Russians just burned land and retreated, and then by the time the French got to Moscow, the winter kind of wiped them out. Well, between the winter and disease, and basically crippled. I mean, France didn't really recover much after that. Waterloo's not too long after that, and that kind of puts the final nail in the coffin. But Germany did the same thing. But also the Russians did the same thing with the Finnish. They underestimated the Finnish during the Winter War of 38 and 39 before Germany invaded Russia. So that's the same thing, where home field advantage. You've got Soviet Russia that outnumbers the Finnish. Probably 7, 8, 9 to 1, and they go into Finland, and you've got this force of basically a country that grew up shooting and skiing. I mean, they're like the biathlon all-time champions. And that's really what they do. They're able to move around. They're better equipped, better camouflaged for the snow. They're moving on skis. They're good natural shooters because that's the environment they grew up in, hunting. And they're, they're just picking off Russians left and right. And superior armor and men, numbers aren't really going to help you much when you can't navigate the environment.
And I feel like that's such a weird concept to think about. I mean, like, let's just take Star Wars for instance. The Ewoks going against the Imperials, like those little bears going through the forest had the upper hand because they knew it, or they knew the woods and everything like that. It's just like you look at a movie, you look at real life. It's fact. It doesn't matter what you have as far as like equipment. If you don't know the land, sometimes like the environment by itself can get you. It's such a weird concept. I feel like
it's very humbling.
Yes, it really is.
And the Battle of Endor, that was directly inspired by Vietnam.
No way.
Yeah. That's, I mean, the writers, because it wasn't just George Lucas at that point. I think you had, what's his name? I just blanked out. Lawrence Kasdan. Yeah, that's his name. Wrote Empire and parts of Return. And I mean, they basically have gone on record to say that, the Battle of Endor was kind of inspired by Vietnam and the Viet Cong specifically.
That is correct. I mean, I can see it. I mean, that's crazy. All right, we'll get on to the next one right here. So it's George H.W. Bush knew of JFK's assassination. So like with Lincoln's assassination, there are no limits to the amount of conspiracy theories that can appear. One that has been taken on life of its own is the JFK assassination was a cover-up, and Lee Harvey Oswald took the fall for another man. George H.W. Bush, future 41st president of the United States. At the time, George H.W. Bush was not in line for becoming president. In fact, he wasn't even a senator. Instead, it is theorized that George H.W. Bush worked for the CIA, an agency that would one day become the director of. Oh.
Yep. I was about to say, I didn't think that was theorized at all. I think we knew he was director of the CIA.
Yeah, he was.
And does that mean he had anything to do with the assassination? Well, we're probably going to learn a lot more about that with all these documents that are being released.
That's true.
I was just going to mention that. So that'll be interesting.
But I would say, just simply as director of the CIA, I would imagine that he is privy to information already. So even if he was not involved, I'm sure he knows.
Oh yeah, or he did know because he's The article goes on to say there was various different directions that the theory goes off in. One is that George H.W. Bush was working with the CIA regarding Cuba and information dealing with the Bay of Pigs, that George H.W. Bush was working his friend, then Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, for political gain, or that George H.W. Bush was a spy since he was 18 years old at the time. The conspiracy all calls upon the fact that George W. Bush claims that he doesn't remember where he was the day President Kennedy was assassinated, and that a man fitting George H.W. Bush had appeared in Texas airport the morning of the president's assassination.
That's awfully convenient not to remember where you were that day.
I mean, all right. Let's see here. What was the last holiday that we had?
Was it Christmas or New Year's?
Was it MLK federal holiday?
Oh, federal holiday.
Okay. Where were you guys on MLK's Day?
I was probably at work.
Well, that was a Monday, so I was definitely still here at work.
Oh, very convenient. You're always at work. I don't know. I just feel like that, like, oh, you don't remember where you were on this specific day at this specific. It's like, I work all the time. Like, I'm either at work or, it would be interesting to see what he did say.
Right.
I mean, he says that he doesn't remember, but I mean.
But that being a huge news story too, like, we don't even have to say holidays. Like, I remember where I was on 9/11. I talked about it on the Waco episode. I knew exactly where I was when I saw that on TV.
That's true. Oh, yeah. Speaking of, for all you listeners who are out there, we did do a Waco episode, and that was actually Clark's very first episode with us. So a little shout out right there. It's a great episode. Take a listen to that. But
whoop, whoop.
But yeah, I don't know. For me, I have a terrible memory too. So I don't blame him for not remembering. But again, it was a very historic moment. So I like you were saying, because I remember where I was on 9/11. I remember sitting in the classroom in I think like 4th grade or something like that.
Yeah, I definitely remember mine. That was a month before I turned 18, and everybody was like, "You ready to go to war?"
Oh goodness!
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm telling you, those buildings were falling. Everybody thought World War III was about to happen. Everybody, and I was in a classroom with a bunch of seniors about to turn 18, and we were all thinking, "Here comes the draft."
Oh. I was just home watching anime. That's all I was doing.
So this next one is I didn't read this article. I'm reading these all for the first time and getting the reactions the same as you. But the title of this one is, I'm very, very curious to see how this one reads, but it's Obama created Hurricane Sandy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Okay, no.
I'm kind of interested to see how this goes. So, as the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. For President Obama, the statement can be applied both figuratively and literally, according to some conspiracy theorists. A running theory claims that the 44th President Obama created Hurricane Sandy in order to boost news in his favor. The theory states that Obama used his presidential power to order the use of military research program called the High Frequency Active Aerial Research Program, or HARP, to alter Earth's ionosphere in order to create a hurricane. There's a little bit more to the article, but based on that by itself, do you think that could even be possible?
I don't see how this would be possible. This is so out of left field.
I mean, we can do some crazy things, obviously, with science and DARPA, a real, research program that we know exists. But HARP, you hear about it all the time. Maybe they're looking into some stuff. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's just a subsect of DARPA. But like, how like egotistical are we to think we can actually control Mother Nature?
Right? And I mean, to that scale, we're not talking of, I don't know, maybe making it rain a little bit more one day, like a whole hurricane. I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I mean, yeah, you can't even like, if we could do anything remotely close to that, why would we not be using it to divert hurricanes that we have?
That's true. Yeah. Honestly.
If you could move a hurricane and have it hit where you want, like Sandy was a freak thing to hit as far north as it did. If we could do that, as a guy who lives in the southeast coast, I would gladly like it if they would move some of these hurricanes somewhere else. I mean, send more of them up that way for all I care. I've had enough in my lifetime. So, like, yeah, I just don't see us being able to like create this superstorm. And also, how does Obama benefit from this? You're sending it towards a population that I think would be more supportive of him. Like, there was a lot more blue states that it caused damage to.
That happened in 2012.
Oh wow! So in his second term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's getting ready for his second term as president. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see how if it was leaked or if it was known that somehow he was involved with the creation of Sandy, that would only hurt his reputation, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
True, but I mean, think about it, like, because I mean, even like I said, the article, like Obama controlling Hurricane Sandy or creating it, it's so like it seems ridiculous that I think most people would be like, yeah, okay, like they wouldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I am almost 99% sure that we can create rain.
You think?
I'm sure. I remember hearing about this with like what was it? The war in Vietnam. Like they would fly into the clouds and pump something into the clouds to make it rain in the like in because like Vietnam, like there were no roads as far as like hardball roads or anything like that, so they would make it rain, so these avenues were all muddy and everything like that, so transporting goods was tough. I'm trying to look it up right now so I don't sound right. I'm trying to get some real facts, not just throw shit at a wall.
And granted, I don't know. Definitely. I don't know anything about science or meteorology or anything like that, but I just can't reason with just, I don't know, bombing a cloud to make it rain, or I don't know.
Okay.
How would you do that?
Okay, I'm all right. This is I knew it. All right, so it's called cloud seeding. All right, so cloud seeding is a method used to make clouds rain.
Oh.
Using aircraft, drones, or rockets, small particles of silver or lead
Interesting.
iodide are released into the sky. Because of these particles have similar structure to ice, the water droplets in the clouds, which are too small to fall as rain, surround the silver iodide, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. As the water and silver iodide combine, ice crystals form. Eventually, the ice crystals become too heavy to remain in the air. As they fall, they melt to become ice droplets. Here it is. In 1974, during the Vietnam War, the U.S. Army used cloud seeding to alter the weather. The aim was to prolong the monsoon season in Vietnam, making fighting more difficult for the enemy. The plan was named Operation Popeye, and meant that the U.S. troops were more prepared for the extensive rainy seasons. According to the documents posted online at the Office of Historian, Operation Popeye used the rain as a weapon to destroy roads and flood rivers. So I knew it. I knew I read something about that cloud seeding.
That is so crazy.
So it is possible to make it rain.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to make a hurricane?
I was going to say, now, well, storms though that are the size of like 3 states. I mean,
it is
a lot.
It really is asking a lot, but it's like it's one of those things where, again, depending on how much of a conspiracy theory you are, or like how much. I mean, again, like if you believe in the Illuminati, maybe they have a weapon or something like that, or a device that can control wind. And we just read about cloud seeding, so maybe we can. I don't know, but it really is a interesting thing to think about, that we can control at least rain. So maybe that's how the conspiracy, kind of built up from there. Was like, okay, we can control the rain, so therefore maybe we can control a hurricane. I don't know.
Very interesting. In that case, I need to meet whoever's controlling the snow over Indiana. This needs to stop. Please.
Yeah, right.
And a shout out to a future episode we'll do about what it's like to live in a state of emergency from hurricane season. I can now vouch for that.
Yeah, we still need to do an episode on that too, Clark. You just talking about that experience.
Yeah, I was, for the listeners, I was MIA for a while, and that was due to the fact that Hurricane Helene practically nuked my hometown. Still, we were in February, and there are still trucks removing debris and trees out of the roads and neighborhoods.
That is crazy.
Wow.
Well, we're glad you're all right, Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was literally I'm trying to think of what that is. It like in what's the movie In the Day After Tomorrow, where the guys, like the janitor's, like cleaning the room, and then he hears all this loud noise.
Yeah.
And when he opens the door, half the building's missing. That's kind of what it was like waking up that Friday morning, because I told my girlfriend, I was like, hey, we're good. We're fine. It's going to be all right.
You jinxed it.
We're okay.
You totally jinxed it.
Well, here's the thing. We woke up the next morning and our house was fine. Our yard was fine. Everything was cool. Cars are okay. And we look around and our neighborhood is just destroyed. Trees, I mean, huge trees down. I mean, Georgia is basically one big pine tree as it is. There's so many pine trees. They were snapping all night like toothpicks. It sounded like mortars going off the entire night. I mean, these huge explosions from these big trees snapping like they were nothing.
I remember that. Like, I remember getting all the like emergencies for it. But like, again, I think maybe because I'm not originally from the South, I was like, we'll be fine. Like this, it's not going to be bad. It rained a lot, that's for sure. And I think we got a little bit of storms, but like I guess I don't fully like. I understand like the North, and like when there's a snowstorm coming, like I take it seriously. And I guess like I underestimated like how bad hurricanes can actually be. So yeah, I don't know. It's just prepare for it, I guess. You'd rather be safe than sorry, you know?
Yep, definitely. I won't take it for granted. I mean,
Yeah.
do a lot of them like on the coast where as long as you were away from the storm surge or you evacuated, like, I mean, cleanup is always kind of something you deal with, but it wasn't like this was just totally different. Like now where I'm living, being more inland and being more like forest than coast, like realizing that you had all this, like all these trees and like stuff that now just became projectiles.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Literally turned nature into ordnance. It was insane, like how much damage is done. I've got all kinds of videos and pictures I'll upload when we do the episode.
Yeah, that's what I like. We'll wrap up this little article right here. So again, we were asking like, why would Obama do this? It was to build re-election credit, of course. At the time, President Obama and Mitt Romney were dueling it out in the political realm, and Obama was facing harsh criticism of his ability to be a decisive and strong leader, which could have put his re-election status at risk. According to the theorist, his situation or his solution was to create a natural disaster that would turn the tides in his favor. He did this by using HARP, which is located in Alaska, to alter the frequencies of the weather and distract everyone from upcoming election. The theory is a bit of a stretch, but Obama did win his re-election, so maybe all hurricanes are actually the fault of presidents rather than Mother Nature.
Oh my goodness.
Instead of debunking this one, I'm going to fuel it further.
Okay.
I think that we do not have the capability of creating a hurricane, but maybe the aliens that we're in contact with do.
Oh gosh. And in the show with aliens, I like it.
So when all that comes out and we meet our new alien friends that's supposed to be like 2027 or whatever, they're supposed to finally show themselves. And that's why we're
it's coming up. All right.
Yeah.
So we'll realize that the whole time we've just been borrowing some stuff from them, and that's
Oh.
Well, I'm kind of surprised that we haven't done like an Area 51 or like a dedicated alien episode. We'll definitely have to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's a couple more presidential conspiracy theories in that article and everything. For you as the listener, we're gonna leave you with your own research to do and to look into it. It's pretty interesting. There's a couple more in there. We didn't get all, but yeah, it's those are some presidential conspiracy theories. We hope you enjoyed what you listened to. Clark, Lily, any kind of last thoughts or anything?
Just, for legal purposes, everything we say is just alleged. We're not looking for any trouble.
Yeah. Clark, you scared us right away when you cut it in and out. We thought the Illuminati got you.
I'm definitely doing this under no duress.
Just blink if you need help.
Yeah, saying what the aliens want me to say, I promise.
But yeah, for you as a listener, we got plenty of social medias. You can go check them out. We also are pretty active in our Reddit. So if you post things there, we'll definitely take a look at them. We do have our fish bowls that we do. So we like to gather stuff on Reddit, present it to everyone here, talk about it. So if you find some interesting stuff, go ahead and post it there, or just leave us a message on our social medias. And just remember, we don't want stuff that's normal. We want stuff that's effing weird.